Jenny, what's cooking?
Not much. What's cooking with you, Jonathan?
You know, it's October, it's spooky season.
It's spooky season, and it's my favorite season. The leaves and the trees are absolutely glorious, and I never feel so lucky to live in Eastern Kentucky as I do in October.
No doubt.
It's just been amazing.
And I just love cooking in the fall. I mean, it's
I
just
do
my
too.
favorite time of year to cook because it's when you start talking about, you know, warm, soupy things that I love. You start talking about orange foods that I've talked at great length about my love for
Casseroles. I love a
almost
good
all
casserole.
foods orange. A great casserole. I had some amazing chicken casserole from the ISOM IGA the other day. That was, yeah, I'd recommend
sounds
checking
good.
out. But tonight we're not going with comfort food. We're not going with that sort of thing. Tonight we're going for food that scares you.
We are, and when Jonathan suggested this as a theme, I said, well, what do you mean? Like, I obviously cook stuff all the time that horrifies other people. And he said, no, I was thinking about food that scares you, that scares you to cook it. And I really thought about that for a long time because the only foods that really scare me to cook are either really difficult or they take way too long to do on the show or they require you know, I don't have good technique. You do. You have all the technique, all the stuff. I'm really not that great of a cook. I'm good at putting things together and feeding them to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
And
I get
so when I thought about this, I thought that what scares me is, one thing that scares me is frying. Frying horrifies me. I'm terrible at it. I almost always set off the smoke alarm. Sometimes there's fires. It's horrifying. So tonight I'm going to be cooking something where the technique scares me, but the ingredients are going to scare you.
I'm going to talk about something that doesn't scare me very much anymore, but I think at first it did because this is something I didn't grow up cooking a lot with, and something a lot of Appalachians, for some reason, you know, I think a lot of cooks go their entire lives without using it in its native, fresh form, and that is our good friend garlic. That's right. If you want to keep the vampires away, that's what you do. You got your garlic. That's what it looks like in a bulb. Here's how you break the bulb apart. You got the little pointy part. Push it down on the board like that. And that's how you break it up into these little cloves. So you might see a lot of recipes that say, hey, you know, here 1 clove of garlic. So you might use that much garlic.
If it calls for 1 clove, you might as well put in 10.
You use however much Jesus tells you to. That is the
right.
correct answer to that question. You might use two cloves. It might say you might even have a really scary recipe that has 3 cloves. Or you might have the recipe I'm doing tonight, which involves 2 cups of garlic. That's right.
Lot of garlic.
That's a lot of garlic. Because tonight I'm doing a soup that actually comes from a chef named Susan Spicer from New Orleans. Wonderful restaurant called Bayona. If you get to New Orleans and you want to have especially lunch in the Quarter, I think their lunch is amazing. Their duck peanut butter and jelly is pretty famous there. But the other dish they're famous for is their garlic soup.
You know, we love garlic here on What's Cooking Now.
We've done entire shows of garlic where we made where we had, you know, full on we were competing almost to see who could use the most garlic and
might have to
see
do that again
exactly
sometime.
how much we could get through. But I've learned some of these recipes that seem to have just tons of garlic in them, and how you can really sort of mellow it. So I've got, again, 2 cups of garlic here, and I actually got this from a bag. I didn't break all this up myself, but I've left these cloves whole. And one thing about garlic is that it changes a lot based on how you prepare it. So and whether you cut it up, because there's 2 different compounds within garlic. One of them is called allicin. The other one I can't remember the name of, but it's Veronica maybe. But but if you
That's not really it.
but what happens when you chop garlic up is those 2 things come together and form the kind of flavor of garlic that we're used to, that kind of sharp garlic flavor. But what we're going to do here is we're not going to cut them up at all. We're going to go ahead and just cook all these at once. So what I've got going over here in our pot cam, I've got some onions that I'm browning. I'm getting those caramelized. We've got those a little bit darker than I ordinarily would.
Those smell delightful.
I've got about 6 cups of onions, so I've got a whole lot of onions that I started earlier. And I'm just going to add this garlic right to that.
Just the whole clove.
I'm adding
right
all
in
these
there.
whole cloves right in there. And now when you cook garlic, a lot of times when you cook garlic, you don't really want to cook it long and slow like this. And you certainly don't want to cook it fast. You don't want to apply a whole lot of heat because it tends to get bitter and just get kind of nasty. But here you've got a couple of things ensuring against that. One is the heat's fairly low. 2 is those cloves are still whole. That actually prevents a lot of that. And 3, the onion still has...
Take your pointer finger, and I want you to
cooking
mash
that onion
down.
gives you a little bit of insurance against overcooking that garlic. So we're going to let this go for about 15 more minutes with the garlic in here until we, and just keeping that, stirring that as much as we can. We want to get those onions nice and dark. And these onions have been going for probably 15 minutes. Ordinarily, if I'm caramelizing, I wouldn't get a lot of those black bits in there, but I'm actually okay with it here. I think that it's going to be delicious. So, and
That's great.
And remember, when you're caramelizing onions, it just takes a lot of time. There's no way to do it fast. And if you've got a recipe that says, caramelize your onions in 10 minutes,
not
it
caramelized.
takes 10 minutes. No, that's barely brown. So you want these good and dark, and try to get a little bit of color on that garlic as well. So you're going to let this go for a little while. And this is sort of based in a Mexican soup called sopa de ajo that you'll see a lot of places. But I think Susan Spicer sort of brought the New Orleans French influence to it. She's a really interesting chef. She was Bayona was one of the first restaurants, certainly in New Orleans, that kind of pushed back against the whole kind of I would call it the toxic male chef culture. She was really one of the people who started really making a point of hiring women for her kitchen, making sure her kitchen is a place where people didn't yell. I thought that was a really great thing.
We have a kitchen where people don't yell.
Yeah, exactly.
For the most part.
For the most part, when we yell, it's because we want to.
That's right.
It's because it's not because it's not out of we yell just because we're happy.
And we're usually happy to be here at Hyman Settlement School, coming at you with What's Cooking Now, live here in Hyman on this beautiful fall day.
I totally forgot to intro us, but but yes, that's right. We're your favorite 606 based cooking show where food is love and love is delicious. And tonight we're talking about food that scares you. So Jenny, what have you got going?
Well, like I said, I'm going to cook some things where the ingredients will scare you and the technique of frying will scare me. And the ingredients I will unfold as people move through this haunted mansion that
Be afraid.
That is
Be
What's
afraid.
Cooking Now. So the first element that I'm going to make, I'm going to create some bites, and they're going to have different elements, and that will, like I said, I'll unfold the mystery. Because you should have a mystery. It'll
There
be
should be.
like at the end, it'll be like yanking the mask
little
off
haunted
of
house.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to make some mayonnaise, which scares a lot of people because it has raw eggs in it. My eggs are from the most beautiful chicken farmers in the world, Andy and Lindsay Stephen over at Happy Hens Homestead over in Boonville, and I'm going to make what's called a Kewpie mayonnaise. So you've probably seen that if you've been on TikTok or if you've looked at Japanese cooking at all. And Kewpie mayonnaise is basically, it's a little bit sweeter than traditional mayonnaise, and you can make it just with regular mayonnaise. Like you can just take regular American mayonnaise and whisk some stuff into it, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to make it from scratch.
Nice.
One difference between regular homemade mayonnaise and this is that this is only going to use the egg yolks. And your eggs should be at room temperature. I've been cradling these close to my heart, close to my eggs, you might say. And so I'm going to just separate these out now so that I've got the yolks. And the easiest way, I think, to do this is just with your hands.
Yeah, I've seen lots of different tricks about separating
I
eggs.
have
There's that
too,
one
but
using
this
a
is-
water bottle, which I got to work one time.
How?
And
This will be
it worked one time, but it is just much easier to just use your hands.
Yeah.
Or the egg shells themselves.
I
think
use
you
the eggshells sometimes, but I'm kind of clumsy, and the edges of the eggshells are kind of
It
sharp.
kind of depends on the eggs, especially if you've got good farm eggs where the shells tend to be thicker.
Look how pretty.
Yep.
It's a beautiful egg. And those are some nice shells, you can tell. So I'm just going to use an immersion blender, and I'm going to try and do this by myself. The key to making mayonnaise is, first of all, not being afraid to just throw it out if you mess it up. The second key is to be sure that you're adding your oil super, super slowly. And usually you would do this in a blender, and often blenders in the lid, like this blender has, you can see that it's got, you can take this off. And so one of the reasons, and some blenders will even have a lid, and there'll be like a little tiny hole just to help you to make mayonnaise, to drizzle that oil in super, super slowly, or else you'll break the emulsion. Right, so I'm going to try to use an immersion blender because Jonathan said he would help me pour in the oil.
I will.
So I'm going to start by mixing together 2 egg yolks. And to add a little umami to this, one of the things that makes Kewpie mayonnaise actually is MSG. So I don't have any MSG. I don't really have anything against it, to be honest.
No.
I'm fine with it. But this is some mushroom powder. So in Hazard a few weeks ago now, we had the magical and fantastic Appalachian forager. If you don't follow her on TikTok, check her out. She's amazing. But she came and did a mushroom foraging workshop for us for North Fork Local Foods. And we bought all these oyster mushrooms from a grower over near Betaville, who I apologize, I cannot remember his name, but message us and I'll find it out. And he brought us these most gorgeous oyster mushrooms. I mean, they were just beautiful, just so many of them because I wanted to cook them, and I made a mushroom tart. So as I was cutting off kind of the thicker stems, I cut off just the substrate and threw that away. And then the parts that seemed a little too thick to use probably really weren't, but I had an ulterior motive, and that was to dry them in a dehydrator and make mushroom powder. And it smells so good, and it really gives some good umami. So I'm just going to give a little hit of that here. And I just, like I said, I just dried the stems in a dehydrator and then just put them in a blender and ground them up. I'm going to put a little spoonful of mustard, which gives some flavor, but also helps emulsify.
That it does.
I don't know why. Why does it?
It's just, it has mostly to do with the little bit of oil and the little bit of just mostly the sugar, sort of the paste. I really don't know either. I'm just trying to fake it.
And then I'm going to use just a little bit of honey instead of sugar, just because. Just a little bit. Kewpie mayonnaise is typically pretty sweet, so if you ever have seen, what's the egg and cabbage thing, okonomiyaki? It'll usually have Kewpie mayonnaise kind of drizzled across it, and it's a nice thing to have on hand. And then I'm going to just use, I'm going to actually look at my recipe. I'm just going to use some rice vinegar. Different recipes I looked at said a lot of different things. Some of them said that cider vinegar actually gave a closer flavor, but I don't care. I want to use this.
It's just going to give you a little stronger vinegar wang. I think the rice vinegar is actually going to be nice. It'll be subtle.
I think so too. And I'm also going to add just a splash of my current favorite thing, which is this ume plum vinegar. I love it. So it's got this really, it's so good. It's got sort of a, ume plums are very sour and salty, and I'm going to add a little bit of that.
I do love, there's a lot of ume liqueur out there that I like. If you go to Japanese restaurants, they'll have cocktails with ume plum wine or ume liqueurs.
Ooh,
You see it in cocktails a lot. And
I need that. And then I'm going to put in some salt. And then I'm going to take my immersion blender and I'm going to whip this up.
you give these a stir, and I'll be there to help you.
Got this pretty mixed up, and so now I'm going to really try to drizzle this in super, super slowly. Wish me luck. I think I can do it. I'm going to get you to do it because I'm going to poke it a little bit. Stop for a minute. I feel like that's too much. It's going to break. Making mayonnaise in a blender, you can hear when it gets outside. It's a little difficult to do. About how I want it, because I just want little dollops. Oh God, that's so good. Ooh, I want to eat this on everything. Okay, what do you got going on over there now, Jonathan?
Well, you can see this garlic getting a little bit of color on it. We'll have the camera come over and get on this, but you can see that garlic getting a little bit dark, and a lot of times, you know, you don't really want color on your garlic. I mean, if you get color on it, get a little bit brown, it's going to get bitter. But here, again, we're only getting the outside of it, and the inside is getting all nice and soft and cooked. And we're going to give that, I'm going to give that just a few more minutes. And those onions are getting really nice and dark and caramelized. And then we're going to make a soup out of this here in just a few minutes. So, and again, I do a lot of recipes like this. There's one that I do fairly often, not as often as I'd like to, but that I think is one of my favorite fall recipes, where I just you sort of do a whole lot of garlic like this on chicken.
Oh yeah,
and
chicken with 40 cloves.
Chicken with 40 cloves,
That's one of my favorites.
You do this in a skillet. You put it in the oven for a long time, 2 hours, with some herbs and some shallots and everything, and it's just delicious and makes the house smell amazing. So smells pretty good in here. We got to get that smell-o-vision thing going on. What are you doing there, Jenny?
I love garlic, and I remember back in the day. Do you remember when it was like in the 90s, I guess? Everybody one year for Christmas got these little terracotta garlic roasters, and we would roast whole heads of garlic and just serve it with everything. And my mother said to me once, she said, "I'm sure that your students really like you, but they probably talk about how you stink of garlic all the time." And I was like, higher praise, never had.
I mean, really, that's, it's one of those things that it's almost like a good first date test.
Yeah, like
everybody says, "Oh, you don't want to eat a lot of garlic on a date." I'm like, no, you got to throw that gauntlet down.
I would much rather my house smell like garlic than
anything else,
rainwater or whatever.
Almost anything else.
So what I'm doing here is I've got some oil that I'm going to start heating kind of slowly, and this is, like I said, I'm terrified of frying. I'm not patient enough to do it. I'm not careful enough to do it. I mean, I set off the smoke alarm when I just saute things, let alone when I'm dunking things in boiling hot oil. So this is horrifying to me. One of the reasons that Jonathan is always the cocktail maker and makes such better cocktails than me is that he's very careful about things. He measures things. He's got a kitchen scale. He's very meticulous when he needs to be. He can also freehand, of course, like nobody's business, but being meticulous is not my forte. So I think frying means you've got to be a little meticulous.
You've got to at least with your temperatures and things like that.
Or at least
and
experience.
Timings, yeah.
I am neither meticulous nor experienced with frying. But I'm going to try it. So I'm going to be using a Japanese technique for frying. How did we decide we pronounce that?
Karage.
Karage, which just basically means that you're kind of slow frying stuff at about 325, 350 degrees. Typically chicken or sometimes fish. In this case, we're going to be frying balls. So I have here a bowl of testicles. They didn't belong to anyone, I know, it's fine. These are also from Happy Hens. These are lamb testicles, and I've cut them up into fairly small pieces, and they're marinating in a marinade that has some soy sauce and some ginger and some garlic. And a little bit of sorghum and salt. So they've been marinating for a little while. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these eggs, and I'm going to dip them first in beaten egg. Can you grab me a fork, please?
Yes.
I forgot. I knew I'd forget something. And then they get dipped in cornstarch for a really kind of crispy, crunchy coating.
Maybe.
Thank you. So I'm just going to beat these eggs, and ordinarily I would put these on a rack so that they could, do their little thing. But I don't have a rack, so I'm just going to put some cornstarch on this plate so that I can lay them right in that. I've never fried anything in cornstarch, and really just the whole frying, like dip it first in milk and then in flour and then an egg, and I don't even know what order you're supposed to do it in.
Well, it's complicated. I mean, it's a process, and it dirties a lot of dishes, and it's.
I don't mind dirtying dishes, but I'm just kind of impatient. I tend to sort of adhere to what my good friend Tim Dunn says, which is that if a recipe says "meanwhile," he's not cooking it.
Meanwhile, I'm adding some stock to my. So I've got about 8 cups of stock that I'm adding to this. If you got homemade stock, that'd be perfect. If you don't want it to have chicken in it, you could easily do a veggie stock, and this would be a great, still be a great soup. And while Jenny's dipping and while we're coming to a boil over there, I think it's a good time for a break. You're watching What's Cooking Now here in beautiful Hindman, Kentucky. Shout out to Tamara, who is apparently watching us from Florida, where she's off doing a gingerbread workshop right now. So
I can't wait to see.
I can't wait to see what all she turns out there. She's already sent me some pictures that are pretty amazing. So,
awesome.
But if I burn anything tonight, it's because she's in Florida, because she's usually on non-burn patrol.
I don't really know that we can really operate without her.
We really can't. I can't
Tamara,
in general.
come home.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at a loss. But you're watching What's Cooking Now. We'll be back briefly.
Reading well at an early age is essential to later success in education, employment, and life. Students who are not reading at proficient levels by the end of 3rd grade are more likely to struggle throughout their school years, which in turn leads to higher dropout rates and fewer students being college and career ready. In Appalachian, Kentucky, of every 5 children enter 4th grade reading proficiently. Reading Corps at Heinemann Settlement School strives to increase proficiency rates and close the achievement gap by delivering one-on-one and small group intervention to students in kindergarten through 3rd grade at partner public elementary schools across southeastern Kentucky. Each of the settlement's 40 members serves a caseload of 15 to 20 students and provides up to 30 minutes of daily instruction in phonics and comprehension to eliminate the barriers their students face to grade level reading. By ensuring that every student has an opportunity to succeed, Reading Corps is making a difference in strengthening our communities. For more information, visit hyman.org/Reading Corps.
Take your pointer finger, and I want you to mash down all the blue dots with one finger.
Okay.
Just one finger. Yeah. And hold it flat.
Any finger?
Hold it flat so you cover up all the strings.
Our Pick and Bow program is more than just music lessons. It's a way for young people to express themselves through music. Our wonderful team of music teachers seek to empower students to develop their own unique voice through music. Learning to play an instrument is often not an easy task. It's hard work, but it teaches valuable life skills like collaboration, active listening, and creative problem solving. And when young people are given the tools to be successful at something difficult, the confidence that emerges from that serves them in every area of their life. Bluegrass and traditional music is often played in group settings. And we believe this is really important because it helps young people connect with themselves and with others in their community and see their role in a group. And how do you add to the group sound, and how do you listen to what's going on around you and add to it? And because we focus on teaching traditional Appalachian instruments and songs, young folks are not only learning about Appalachian music, but they are actively participating in the rich musical traditions of Appalachia and Eastern Kentucky and claiming it as their own.
We're back, and Jenny is going to talk about balls.
These are way slipperier than the balls I'm used to. They're really sliding around in the egg and in the cornstarch a lot. They're very delicate. So I know that a lot of people don't like organ meat. A lot of people are, in fact, horrified of organ meat. But I really like it. But I get why some people might be a little reluctant to try this. But it's really a long-standing Southern delicacy. You know, it's not, it's something that people have eaten traditionally for a long time. I remember when I was in college, I worked at an old Lexington restaurant called the Saratoga, which was the place where kind of a lot of racing people hung out. When I worked there, it wasn't the original Saratoga. Ramsey's had bought it. But this was, lamb fries were one of the most popular dishes on the menu, and they were typically served as like an appetizer with some cream gravy to dip them in, deep fried. And we were instructed, I was a waitress there, and we were instructed, if someone asked, what are lamb fries? We were instructed to say, they're the most tender part of the lamb, the male lamb. Which I kind of objected to because I don't like to trick people. You know, if I'm going to feed you balls, I'm going to tell you that I'm feeding you balls. I have a feeling that tonight I'm going to be eating this whole plate because I have a feeling people are going to be frightened to try it with me.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, but that's okay. What's going on with your soup?
So I'm going to add a few things to, I've got that boiling over there. I'm going to add a few things to that. One is I've got a little bit of thyme, which I've just pulled off fresh. And I've also, on top of that, I've got a bouquet garni, which is a fancy French word for a bunch of herbs tied together.
I love that.
In there, I've got a little bit more thyme. I've got some parsley, and I've got some bay leaves that are all sort of tied together with kitchen twine. So I'm going to throw that together. I've also got about a third of a baguette. I've got about 3 cups of bread cubes. And this is one of the great ways to thicken soup, is to just sort of cook some bread in it, and then
There's
blend
a
it up.
Spanish soup that's a lot
There's
like
a
this, right?
a gazpacho, a traditional gazpacho is thickened with bread, and you find a lot of French
But I mean,
soups are
there's
done
a
this way.
garlic soup like
Yeah,
this,
there's
right?
you can definitely do a garlic, a sopa de ajo, with bread like this, and a white gazpacho is another another cold soup. But I'm going to add all this to my stock, which is boiling over here. Come to a pretty decent boil. I'm going to turn that down to a simmer, and I'm going to let it go for about 20 minutes. I want that bread to get soft, And I think, and I've gotten, again, there was a lot of kind of black on those caramelized onions. You know, a proper French chef would throw me out of the kitchen. But I do like I like the little black bits sometimes. So we're just gonna go with it tonight.
I'm good with it.
So I've thrown my bouquet in. I'm just gonna let that go for about 20 minutes. And so Jenny's heating her oil up over here. I'm going to check it for her.
Okay, I'm just going to rinse my hands real quick.
So using an instant read, she's up at about over 200. I'm actually going to crank the heat a little bit.
Crank it up a little bit. So I'm really terrified of this. Like I said, do you think it's deep enough? Do I need more oil?
I mean,
I feel like maybe I need more.
It never
oil.
hurts. I might put a little more oil in there.
I've never really had the patience to fry things. I've always, and I love fried things, as probably everyone does, right? I love fried chicken. I love fried potatoes. I love deep fried vegetables. I love chips, vegetable chips that have been fried. But it just frightens me for so many reasons.
But I would definitely, yeah, you want to get that, and you always, when you're frying, you want to let your oil get to temperature before you put anything in there. And then you want to make sure before you add another batch that it gets back to temperature.
And you don't want to crowd the pan.
You don't want to crowd the pan. And one thing that's great.
Things I've read, but I don't know that
one thing that's great about these
heart.
big industrial stoves like this is you can really put a lot of heat under it, because where you get a lot of where frying falls apart.
Yep.
A lot of times is when the temperature dips. You put this stuff in there, it's got a lot of water that absorbs a lot of heat. So the temperature is going to drop quite a bit when you put it in there. That's why whenever you fry, you want to use as much oil as you can, and you want as much heat under it as you can get most of the time. So that's that's how that works. So while she's doing that, I'm going to be setting up for cocktail time.
You know, I probably, can we do cocktail time before I fry?
Sure.
I feel like that would be good. I feel like that would give me the strength I need.
Yeah, she needs that strength. Well, yeah, we can go ahead and do some cocktail time. Tonight we're doing not really doing a cocktail so much as just we're going to talk about a particular beverage that doesn't get a lot of that didn't get a lot of love for a long time, and I think has come back into vogue in really the last 30 years, only because you can now get it, and that is absinthe. Absinthe is a traditional spirit, usually from France. That's where most of it came from. It was actually invented in Switzerland in the late 1700s. I do remember it was invented by, because I love his name, a doctor by the name of Dr. Pierre Ordinaire, which just sounds like I don't know, a French porn actor or something. But he invented this product, which is it's a liquor. It's a spirit flavored with a lot of different herbs, anise, and usually some sage in there, but also wormwood is probably the one that's most famous and what gives it its traditional green color. That's why this was known as La Fée Verte, or the green fairy, in most of its. And if you were a writer or artist in the late 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s, this was your jam. This stuff really got you through the day.
Little opium.
This little opium, just that was the way to go. A little.
When we were discussing what cocktail we could do on the show that might be spooky, and we were like, I don't know, and I said maybe absinthe. That's scary, right? That scares people. It used to be poison. And Jonathan, of course, replied, I have a proper absinthe spoon, and I said I would expect nothing less.
So
I've never had absinthe.
Well,
I've
now,
always wanted to.
So absinthe for a long time was unavailable in this country and in a lot of countries because a lot of people were afraid of a compound called thujone. This used to, people thought this made people go crazy, that a lot of people went crazy over this beverage because of this compound called thujone that comes from the wormwood. So for a long time it was banned in this country. It was still made. The only place it really still thrived was in the Czech Republic, of all places. But
why do you think that is?
I'm not sure. But but eventually they started exporting some of it to the UK, which never actually completely banned it. And
it's so pretty.
But it turns out that the molecule that was really getting people turned when it came to absinthe.
Look at that. That is is gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. That is it's a pretty color. It's going to get prettier. So we'll. But the molecule that really got people all messed up with absinthe was ethanol. It's the alcohol. It's just this stuff happens to be really boozy. It turns out thujone doesn't actually have a whole lot of psychoactive properties. It's mostly.
I didn't understand any of the words that you just said.
Yeah, well, in other words, thujone doesn't actually mess you up that much. It's just mostly the fact that it's mostly psychological, and it's and again, this was a fun, one of those things of favorites of people with great creative minds. So, so there is a proper way to do this to serve absinthe. I'm just going to read a story real quick.
It the proper way. Rest assured.
And so you do have, as you said,
Did you say this isn't a Sazerac?
Yeah, well,
So
you rinse the glass.
Sazerac.
You rinse the glass with absinthe,
like
and
a
there's some other things, but a nice absinthe rinse as a background in a cocktail can be a great thing. But this is an absinthe spoon. This is you can buy this in many gift shops in New Orleans, which is where this one came from. And actually, some of the bottles that I looked at, some of the more expensive bottles of absinthe that I was looking at yesterday when I was going to buy one, actually come with one. You can they actually come with one of these. So. But the point is, you take your glass of absinthe,
Yep.
and then you put your absinthe spoon over it, and then you take another dying art, a sugar cube. You place on top of the absinthe spoon, and then
Those look like fancy sugar cubes.
and then you take some ice
Okay.
water,
Get in tight on this.
and we're going to just sort of drizzle some of that over this, and you want to dilute it pretty good. But now look at that. Look at that. Look at the swirling. That's your green fairy right there.
beautiful.
See the whole swirling effect?
That
There's
is
a name for that, and I
gorgeous.
can't remember the name exactly, but it's
Look at that. That's so pretty. That's magical.
that's where you get that swirling. And if you're doing this in a lot of places, you can they'll have what they call an absinthe fountain, where there'll just be a thing up here that they keep ice water in, and you turn it, and it drips directly onto the absinthe spoon. So so yeah, you want to dilute it about 3 to 1 altogether. It's right over that sugar cube.
Am I going to go crazy and start writing romantic poetry? If
Yeah,
I make this?
I hope so. I assumed that was your whole. So if you've never had it, give that a try.
It smells good. I really like this, and I'm having trouble identifying the flavors, but it kind of reminds me of chartreuse almost, and it's just very herbaceous. I really like it.
Yeah, it's that big hit of anise, that wormwood.
Yeah, the anise is so
Yeah, the
nice.
wormwood is just a very distinct flavor, and that's what it gives it the distinct color. And then, and yeah, it's now you're ready to party with Toulouse-Lautrec.
What else can you do with this?
Well, it's used in a lot of cocktails.
Toulouse-Lautrec cookbook.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm sure it has a lot of that in it. There's a cocktail. A lot of times it's a background note in cocktails. A lot of times you'll have a cocktail that'll have they'll say an absinthe rinse. So like
And
with
that means you literally
with the
put it in
Sazerac, you
glass?
literally put a tiny bit in there, swish it all around, and then dump it. And that actually, it actually works because what you're doing is you're getting it so that, but it's a Sazerac, so it's just a little bit of liquid in the bottom of a glass. So, but this is going to be coating the top of the glass, so as you drink it, you're smelling it, and it's a so yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All
let's
right,
see
see
how
where
my
your
oil is.
where your oil's looking. That's jumping up there.
This
So
is
you're
supposed to be instant read. How long is this going to take?
instant read doesn't always mean all
Not
that
very
instant. But you're at so you're wanting to get to what 325 you said?
Yeah. This typically is done between 325 and 350, but the testicles are so delicate, really, which is one of the reasons I love them, and one of the reasons I think a lot of people do not love them is because the texture really is off-putting to people. But I love it. They remind me. Well, they don't remind me of anything but balls, really. But they, I similarly love sweetbreads, which are the thymus gland of a young animal. They're a little firmer, but still so delicate, and just that delicate flavor. I love it.
So as you can
turn
see,
it up a little bit.
yeah, go ahead and turn it up.
I'm really nervous about this. I'm afraid I'm going to set the historic Hyman Settlement School on fire, and then it would all be on me.
No, you'll be fine. Wouldn't be the first fire we've set.
That's true.
There were pictures just this week popped up in our Facebook memories of
Yeah.
of a famous wedding fire. So the if you look
That
here,
looks
and
so good.
so what we've got here, all that bread you see is really,
yeah, it's
and
breaking
that
down.
garlic is getting all soft, and it's so that garlic is nice and soft. So I'm going to give that just a few more minutes, and then we'll
looks
and then we're going to
amazing.
blend that up, and yeah. So
I bet that would be good served almost like a French onion soup with some melty cheese.
yeah, I bet it would.
I mean,
And
it
it's served.
tastes good.
Actually, I don't have any here, but what they serve it with at Bayona is a with some little bits of sort of granularized garlic on top.
Ooh.
Almost, I don't know what you'd call it, like a dehydrated garlic on top.
Okay.
And I wish I had some
I'm
of
gonna-
that. So,
I'm going in.
all right, she's doing it. She's doing it. All right, so you're popping in the. We got that in the. Oh yeah, look at that nice overhead shot.
So far, no fires. You know the other thing? I really
What's
don't
that?
know how to tell when these are done. I'm just going to have to pull one out and try it, I guess.
So
I feel like they won't take terribly long to cook.
no, not at all. It's one of those things that's happening when you're frying. You see all that bubbling that's happening. That's because all of that water that's in the balls here is being evaporated and is pushing out. And that's why you can fry things if you fry things with a good delicate hand and you do it right, then the oil's not getting in. It's because all that water is pushing out from the food, and that's keeping the oil from getting in. So that's one of the tricks to frying and why you've got to keep that temperature up.
I remember watching somebody, I think it was Martha Stewart or somebody once, and she was talking about frying chicken properly, and she said that very thing, and then she showed like how much oil she put in it the first, and then she tipped it out into a cup, and it was the
Yeah.
same amount, very little of it.
Yeah, if you
was
fry
actually
right, then
absorbed.
you absorb very little oil.
Ooh, look at these. They're going to be so pretty.
Yep.
It really is making such a nice... I've never coated anything in... Well, I don't really fry things, but I've certainly never even heard of coating things just in cornstarch instead of in flour or some mixture or panko or something.
Yeah, you see this in Japanese cooking a lot.
This is going to be so... Like, this is like tempura, right?
Yep,
I'm making tempura balls.
you are
really.
making tempura balls. And with that, I think it's time for another break. You're watching What's Cooking Now on coming to you from the Heinemann Settlement School right here on Facebook.
Spooky season.
Spooky
so
season,
far I have
foods
revealed
that scare you.
the raw eggs, horrifying mayonnaise, the balls,
The balls.
scares everybody but me. Frying horrifies me, not most people. Just wait till you see the next two ingredients I'm going to pull out. Terrifying.
We'll be right back.
The Red Spotted Newt is a locally owned independent bookstore located in downtown Hazard, Kentucky, specializing in Appalachian literature from authors such as Silas House, Gurney Norman, and Annette Clapsaddle, among many others. The Newt also offers a full collection of art and gifts, including Little Bubby Child prints and these sweet cards inspired by The Office. Check out their store located at 221 Memorial Drive in Hazard, or shop online through bookshop.org. And be sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram at the handle Red Spotted Newt. Hazard Coffee Company is the sole specialty coffee shop in Perry County. Focusing on high-tech, high-quality coffee and espresso, Hazard Coffee Company seeks to cultivate a community environment around coffee. They have a variety of options including your favorites such as mochas and cold brews, as well as specialties such as the Taxi Alley, always brewed to precise perfection. Stop by their shop located on Main Street in downtown Hazard, or order online for delivery with DoorDash or at hazardcoffeecompany.com.
Welcome back. What's Cooking Now? The Scary Show. Talking about food that scares us. I've got a whole, just more garlic than you should, than the law should allow in my soup over here. Full 2 cups that we've got, and you're starting to smell that and smell how great it is. But I'm going to go over here to Jenny where she is.
Oh my God, these are so good. I had to test it to make sure
Of
it
course.
was done. Look how pretty. So far, I haven't caught anything on fire. Look at that crispiness. And that's the inside. So I'm just going to pull these out, but they're beautiful. I'm very pleased with this. And to be honest, not at all sorry that probably everybody's going to be too scared to eat them, because that means more for me. So, Jonathan, tell me what you're going to do with your soup.
So I'm going to blend this up.
Yeah.
Now you could do this with an immersion blender, but I just don't think it's quite the same. I think you really that a soup like this sort of demands having a proper
a real blender.
A real blender, just because you're gonna. It's just you want that silky texture of it. And if you if you use an immersion blender, the only thing I would say is strain it at the end. Use the immersion blender and then strain it to get a lot of bits out. And again, I got nothing wrong with a nice chunky soup, but just not quite what you're going for.
It's a nice smooth.
Yeah, so this is nice and smooth. So I'm going to do this.
Which do you think is smoother, my balls or your soup?
I don't know.
It's a question for the ages.
It's a question for the ages. I'd like to welcome our friends from the Kentucky Humanities Council, by the way.
So when we were thinking about this show and we were talking about just foods that scared us, the food that really scares me is prepared food. You know what I'm saying? Like processed, very processed food. I find that kind of horrifying.
You know what the food that scares me, if I'm really, and this is what I almost did, but I decided to do this instead. But the food that scares me to cook is eggs. It's 100% of the time it's
Well,
eggs.
I really considered doing a souffle, but I've seen you do a souffle, and it's so beautiful and perfect, and I just knew I couldn't live up to that.
I don't really mind doing a souffle. I can handle a souffle, but frying an egg terrifies me. Just because I want to get it exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm such a perfectionist, and there's so many variables that can go
My
wrong.
mother-in-law can fry eggs, and then if they're not the way you like them, she can put them back in the pan and fry them more without breaking them. She's like magic with eggs. I don't understand it. I don't know how she does it.
There we go. Don't put your hand on top of the blender when you do this. That might hurt. But I'm just blending this up. Don't. Okay, this blender is powerful.
I think I'm going to turn it down.
I think even down is. Yeah, I think this blender is just hardcore, and I'm going to take the top off. I think that'll actually help a little bit, and put the towel over it like this, and then all that's got a place to go.
I'm a little worried about this. This is scary. This is super scary.
There we go. That's looking pretty smooth. So ditch this.
Now what happens to it?
Then I'm going to put it back in a pot. And now you could theoretically cool it some before you put it in the blender. If you want to do something like, I don't know, follow the directions properly.
Or not be scary, but it's a show.
But again, this is not that kind of show. And if you want to get over here, you can kind of see what we're dealing with.
Ooh, that looks so good.
That this is just a very, it's very brown, just very, nope. Oh, that looks smooth.
That's really good.
All right, so what I'm going to do is put this back on, and then I'm going to add, I'm going to start adding a little bit of cream.
Oh my
This
God,
is a cream of garlic.
That's so good. It's good just like it is.
This is a cream of garlic soup, so I'm going to put this back on the stove.
There can never be too much garlic, ever. There's no such thing. For sure.
All right, how are the balls?
Balls they're so good. Like I'm sorry for everyone who doesn't want to eat this because they're so good. Also, I mean, let's be real. You could probably deep fry little rocks and they'd be pretty tasty.
Yeah, it would be hard to beat.
A little hard to eat, maybe. A little hard to chew. Ugh, I'm loving this. I'm feeling so happy about myself. You know what I think also is a problem with me in frying, maybe? I think I tend to skimp on the oil because I'm like, I don't want to waste it, you know?
No, you've got to get over that if you're going to fry. It's just it takes a lot of oil. It just does.
It does. That's just the truth of it. That looks amazing, Jonathan.
I'm going to add about a cup of heavy cream to this. Again, something a lot of people fear, and they probably should.
You know, it's an occasional treat.
Yeah, again, this is not something you have every day. But
Not
that's
something
gonna
you serve to your cardiologist.
that's gonna
I
smooth
feel
that
like
out.
the garlic is so healthy, it's going to cancel out.
Smooth that out. You can see all that pretty cream stirring into that soup.
That looks amazing.
So
You're just going to heat that super gently?
just gonna heat that back up a little bit gently, and then it's ready to serve. Correct your seasonings. Pretty good. A little pepper maybe. But salt's about right. So, and get a look at those. Get a look at those balls. They are definitely. I mean, just the
Listen,
brown
if you
crispiness.
haven't tried these, just try them. Just open your heart, open your mind, open your palate, open your mouth, and pop a ball in. It's so good. All right, so while this finishes up, I'm going to go ahead and start my next part. I might need a little absinthe for this. So, Jonathan,
Yes.
you know how Facebook algorithm keeps feeding you things?
Yeah.
So if any of you are listening at home, make sure you've got your phone near you so that you can start getting these too. But I get so many posts about like crazy, weird mid-century foods, many of which are, of course, aspics. And they're always like, oh, who would eat this? This looks crazy. And I'm always like, I would unironically eat that. That looks fabulous to me. So I love a good aspic. I love tomato aspics. I love to do like a lemon aspic and put salad greens in it and salad fixins. There's a horseradish aspic that I absolutely adore, especially served with roast beef. So I love aspics of all kinds. And when I was making this today, which is a kind of Japanese inspired kind of dish, right? So the stuff in the marinade was pretty, soy sauce and ginger and garlic. And I thought, what's a kind of aspic that I could make? And I thought, I wonder if miso aspic exists. So I Googled it, as one does, and I found a recipe for a miso aspic, but frankly, it looked disgusting. It had corn in it, and I don't know if we've discussed this on the show, but I don't like corn. I love corn stuff.
Really?
I love corn. I'm going to stir my balls real quick.
Yeah, please.
I love corn bread. I love corn chips. I love corn, the flavor of corn, but I just don't like corn. And my
Weird.
sister Annie puts corn in everything.
Yes, she does.
If you're gonna have like a vegetable lasagna or something, she's gonna dump a bunch of corn in it. And I'm just not crazy about it. I don't know why. And this recipe that I found was for a miso soup. A miso aspic. So basically, miso jello with corn kernels in it. And I was like, what fresh hell is this? It just sounded horrible. But I thought, I bet I could do something. And I thought about that horseradish aspic that I make. Which I learned from our good friend Betty Jane Combs. And when she makes it, in the traditional recipe, it's pretty traditional, has lemon jello, so it's kind of sweet, and it's got horseradish sauce and heavy cream. And then it's meant to be served with like roast beef, right? When I make that, I adapt it. I use plain gelatin, and I use lemon juice, usually a little sorghum instead of sugar, and I use like horseradish. I would grate fresh horseradish if I could get it, but I usually can't. But I use like the prepared horseradish, not the sauce. Can you get those out?
Yep.
So I thought, that just like when you eat that, it's not like you're just eating big spoonfuls of it. It's not like it's a Jello dessert that you're having as a parfait cup. Although the idea of a parfait cup with horseradish Jello and roast beef layered, maybe some cabbage, is kind of exciting to me. But I thought that's what I want really, is not an aspic that you're just going to eat, but something that's going to be almost like a sauce or something like that. And so I made a miso aspic. And I'm going to get it out, and I'm going to unmold it. And what I'm going to do, and I'll talk about both these items now. So I think aspics horrify people for the most part. I think people are scared of aspics. I also think in general people are scared of weeds. Americans spend so much money and so much time poisoning weeds, getting rid of weeds, having weeds mowed down. I love weeds. I think they're awesome. I have a poke plant right now in my front yard that is glorious. It would fill this kitchen, and the berries are so bright, and the birds are eating it, and it's really just beautiful. So I love weeds, right? I don't like grass. Grass is kind of useless. So what I have here are 2 weeds that I picked from my yard. This is perilla, which is in the mint family. You can tell because the stem is square. Sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's green. It's used a lot in Japanese cooking to wrap, like I've served it sometimes with like ground pork in it. And then I also have this winter cress, which looks a lot like spinach. It's fairly bitter, which I like. I think it's going to play really nicely against those rich balls and the aspic that I have. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create these little bites, which I am going to enjoy, and everyone else is probably going to be horrified to try, where I'm just going to lay, not a whole testicle because they're big. They're like, sheep have big balls. But I've cut them up, obviously, so I'm going to lay a bite of, and we can start calling them lamb fries if that will make people more comfortable.
This perilla reminds me a little bit of shiso.
It's a lot like shiso, and I think it's in the same family.
Probably the same family, and I bought a shiso plant last year and put it fortunately in a contained area because it went crazy. I've never seen anything grow quite like that.
Yeah, I think they are in the same family. Okay, let me see here. Clean this off real quick. Jonathan got soup on my plate, but that's okay because that's going to make it better. And then I'm going to unmold my aspic, and I'm going to try to slice it in little pieces. So what this has in it, this aspic, I made a miso soup, basically, just with sort of a miso paste. And to that, I added some of this ume vinegar. I added a good bit of sorghum. And this was another thing that was kind of scary to me because it's always frightening to make something that's hot that you're going to serve cold because the cold really mutes the flavors.
Yeah, it does.
And it's hard to tell if you have the seasoning right, and you can't fix it with an aspic, because it's done. So I'm going to try to unmold this.
Unmolding things always scares me.
Well, it does me too, but I don't really care because it doesn't have to really stay whole,
but it's still, you'd like it to be.
That didn't work. I also put chili crisp in this, and I wanted it to be pretty spicy. And a little bit of soy sauce. What else did I put? That's it.
It's about to wobble out.
It's kind of falling apart, but that's okay. Like I said, I don't really care if it falls apart because I'm not serving it as, I'm not going to eat this with a spoon. Right?
If you are particular, you can line the pan with saran wrap and then
I started to do that,
but yeah, I mean,
that seemed too careful.
that's a lot.
For me. So here's the bite. Oh, I think this is going to be delightful. So I'm going to do, and I kind of wish, I will tell you this, I sort of wish that I had taken some sushi rice and packed it and done little fried sushi rice. Oh God, I wish I had friends that would eat these things with me. Very sad that I don't.
If only Tamara were here, this would be like her ultimate show, garlic soup and organ meats.
I wish she were. We miss you, Tamara.
We do.
I'm trying to pick small ones because I do want these to be bites. In retrospect, perhaps I should have cut these a little smaller.
Meh.
Oh God, this is so good.
Yeah, home fried stuff can be really amazing when it's like the opposite of salad. It seems like when I deep fry things at home, they're better than deep fried things from.
And when I'm making something that's the opposite of salad,
yeah,
we really have something to say. And then I'm just going to take, and this separated out, right? So you can see the chili crisp kind of sunk to the bottom. So I'm just going to try and get a little of the aspic. I think maybe I should put that on the bottom. Let's do that. Do over. And I'm not going to put much of this. And this is good. This is really good. I'm pleased with this. Look, I'm going to make this again, the aspic part. What's it called when you do like this musabi?
I think so.
With the spam and the
musubi.
Musubi. Yeah. I want to put this on musubi. It's got a really good flavor. It's really spicy. And then I'm just going to put a little touch of my Kewpie mayonnaise. If you're out there listening and you would actually eat this, please call me. And I'll make it for you. And then I'm going to take my mayonnaise. Oh, Jill, I will. I mean, I probably won't. But you could come up here and get it. And I'm just going to drizzle a little of this. I wish that I had brought a little squeeze bottle so that I could actually, drizzle this instead of dolloping it, but this will be okay. Do you think this is enough to move Tyler from being a vegetarian?
It may make him rededicate himself to the whole thing.
And then one final touch.
Hitting with a little bit of sesame seeds. I gotta say, that's pretty.
Look at that.
That is gorgeous.
Look at that. That is beautiful. I love this.
That is a gorgeous
Isn't that pretty?
plate.
I'm going to eat it now.
All right, I'm gonna have one of these too.
Okay.
Not.
Aspic fell out. That was a perfect bite, in my opinion.
That's pretty good.
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good.
That's so good. I love this.
All right. Now I've dished up. So I've dished up a couple tiny bowls of our garlic soup. You can see just how silky smooth that
it's
is.
Beautiful. Cheers. Smack it. Oh, that's so good.
And just a lot of flavors that come out
And
from
it's
that.
so smooth,
It's smooth and it's delicate.
but still so garlicky. I love this.
That is
That's
delicious.
amazing. That's really good.
Don't know if it's as good as it is
Barbara
at Bayona.
Gronquist, it is so delicious.
Don't know if this is as good as that what they make at Bayona, but
I bet it is.
It's,
I bet it's better. This feels
Wouldn't
like
say that.
something that I would want on a very cold night
yeah, that's definitely where you get your soups.
with like a really nice chicory salad or some kind of bitter salad, bitter green salad.
Yeah, this is a nice starter at Bayona for their 3-course lunch with lots of champagne. So, but this has been What's Cooking Now for the month of October. We've been doing scary foods. If you want to definitely like and subscribe to the Heinemann Settlement School for all of their offerings. Always doing amazing things up here. And I want to thank our wonderful crew. I want to thank all of you who commented, watched, tuned in, and otherwise enjoyed. And until next time, Jenny.
Feed the ones you love.
And love the ones you feed. Take care.
Cheers.
What's Cooking Now is a production of Heinemann Settlement School, with funding provided by the Kentucky Humanities Council. Heinemann Settlement School is committed to cultivating and growing the local food system and the unique culinary and agricultural traditions of Central Appalachia through our foodways programs. For more information on our work, visit us at www.hyman.org and be sure to tune in to What's Cooking Now on the first Thursday of each month to see what's cooking.